Hello, my amazing Algebra Half students. This is Mrs. A, and I love math. And today we're doing lesson 49 in our blue book, and it is on evaluation of exponential expressions and radicals. Now remember that I am teaching out of the second edition, and some of you may have the third edition Algebra Half Blue Book from Saxon, and that's fine because the lessons are very, very close together. So if you're just a little bit off on our lessons, it may be because I have edition 2 and you have a newer edition 3, but they really are very close. That's why every time I post a lesson, I post the title of the lesson as well as just the lesson number so that you can find the lesson that you're working on. And today, since we're doing exponential expressions and evaluation, we're going to have a little review of exponents. Remember that 5 cubed is 5 times 5 times 5, because the 3 is the exponent and the 5 is the base. And it means that we're going to take the base and multiply it by itself that many times, 3 times. So x is a variable. So we can have exponential expressions with constants, or we can have exponential expressions with variables. And sometimes they're both mixed in there. So x cubed is x times x times x. And now we're starting the evaluation. Okay, it says evaluate m squared if m is 9. So when we do an evaluation like this, I like to kind of use a skeleton. Okay, so we're going to come right here and we're going to put in a 9. Okay, and we have 9 squared. So basically I'm going to take the m out. So I had m squared. I'm going to take the m out and put in a parenthesis, and then I'm going to put in the value that we're going to evaluate it at. Okay, so 9 squared is 81, and the answer to that one is 81. Okay, now this one is example 2. 4 to the x if x is 3. So we're going to take our little skeleton here, and we're going to take out the x, and we're going to put in our little parentheses, and we're going to put 4 to the 3, which is the third power, which means 4 times 4 times 4, which is 16 times 4, which is 64. That's example 2. This is example 4. We have the nth root of 64. Remember, this index up here is the root that we're taking. So we're taking the nth root of 64. If n is 3, then notice I put my little skeleton over here. I put my little parenthesis. I took out the n, put my little parenthesis. My 64 stays the same. I take my 3, I put it up here in the little parenthesis. Now, you don't need parentheses all the time, but sometimes you really do. If you're going to square it or cube it, always have a parenthesis there. So just to save confusion, I usually just stick the parenthesis there all the time, but you don't have to as long as you make sure you do when you are raising it to a power. All right, so the cubic root means what number am I going to multiply by itself 3 times to get 64? Well, we just did it on the last example. We said 4 times 4 times 4 was 64. Therefore, the cubic root of 64 is 4, because 4 times 4 times 4 equals 64. Okay, so here is my problem, the cubic root of n, if n is 27, and now here is my skeleton. So I left the 3 because it's a constant. I already knew what it was, and then I took out the n and put my little parentheses here, and now I'm going to take the 27 and slide it there where I had the parenthesis. So now we have the cubic root of 27, which means I'm trying to think of the number that when I multiply it by itself 3 times gives me 27, and that number is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. That's our last example, And now we're going to have some practices. Here we have our first two practice problems, so you want to copy those down and then pause your video. Okay, so now on the first practice problem, we're going to make our skeleton. So we're going to say 4, and I'm going to take out the x, which is my variable, and put in the little parenthesis, and then I'm going to slide the substitution value in here so it becomes 4 cubed. My goodness, we've done a lot of 4 cubed today. It would probably be a good thing if we memorized that 4 cubed is 64. Because 4 times 4 times 4 is 64. And then this one is x cubed, where x is 5. So we're going to write our little skeleton here. The x is replaced by the parenthesis. The cube, we already know it. Now we're going to slide in the 5, and we have 5 cubed, which is 5 times 5 times 5, which is 25 times 5, which is 125. Now we have 2 more practices before we're done. Okay, for our last 2 practice problems, I want you to copy down the problems and then pause your video. Okay, so now this one, hopefully you'll memorize it too. We're going to replace the n with our little parenthesis, write down our 27, slide our 3 in where the parenthesis was, and now we're talking about the cubic root of 27, which we just had recently on the last board or two, which is going to be 3 because 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27. Okay, so then remember our roots and our powers undo each other, so we should be able to go backwards and forwards on those. And then we have the nth root of 81, so we're going to rewrite this one with our little parenthesis and then our 81, and then we're going to plug in our 2 because n is 2 here. So now we're talking about, remember, when we have a 2 there, we usually don't even see it because a default for the square root is just a 2 root. We don't even put it there because we know if we see the square root with nothing there, it's the square root. Okay, so you could see it like this, or you could just totally have it disappear and you would know it's still the square root. So the square root of 81 is 9 because 9 times 9 is 81, and we are done with lesson 49, and wasn't that a fast one and a fun one? And this is Mrs. A, and may God bless your day.